Welcome back to Addicted to Recovery, the podcast bringing you the truth about addiction. My name's Christopher White. I'm joined, as ever, by my dear friend, co-host, and fellow recovering addict, Max Thomas. Hello, mate.
How we doing?
Good. Who have we got in the studio?
We have got one and only Mike. How we doing?
Doing good, mate.
Big Mike, he's in the house.
That long last,
Mate, we was talking to Tanner about you the other week a little bit. And, mate, you've just been you were so instrumental to my recovery in the early days. You know what I mean? You was the first person I was like, wow, this geese has got something. You know what I mean? And I really listened.
Tell me how you two met then, because it's the first time I've met you, Mike.
Yeah.
And it's a pleasure. But go on.
Yeah, so
What's the story, Chrissy?
you were coming when I was in the treatment centre, the Lighthouse. You were coming in, yeah, and running groups,
Yeah.
and talking to everyone, like that. And you was just saying to me in the car on the way up here that I was like on the edge of my seat,
Yeah,
listening,
yeah.
really listening.
I think when we used to do the groups, you used to be there, and I could see your mouth open and your eyes wide open, and I could feel that you was really taking it in,
Yeah,
and that was really good. You weren't going out like turning away and put your head down. You
Yeah.
was like more, and I felt like I was spoon feeding you.
yeah,
You get it, and like you was very smart because you was taking it in. But like what we spoke about, it felt like you come a part in your life where you was ready for it. Well,
yeah.
when the teacher
When the
turned up,
student's ready, the teacher
student-
appears.
That's it.
Yeah.
And I think that was it.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter who it was, you was ready.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like,
Yeah.
and this is the thing I was saying to him up here.
Mhm.
Even though I sort of had an inkling that I was done
Mm.
and that I really wanted to find this new way of life, all my previous experiences had told me that I was going to fuck up again and I was going to relapse and I was going to go back out there just
Yeah.
because that's what I always did.
Yeah.
But it was great for you to say that and be like, no, you wanted it.
Yeah.
And I did. I really wanted it.
I spoke to Mike in the kitchen. Right? I go to meetings now, and I'm secretary at a meeting on a Monday night, and a lot of the time, the front row is empty. We're in rows normally in meetings or in a circle, but the front row of this meeting is normally empty.
Yeah.
And I was saying to Mike, when I did my 99, I was front row. I was
Yeah.
so ready to leave my old life behind, I suppose, and just learn. I was just like eyes open at the front, just teach me. That was
Yeah.
it. And I do try and encourage the newcomers to try and sit in those front seats because you're not as likely to go on your phone or drift away because you're just focused on the person sharing and the secretary. And it was a big thing.
Yeah, I
to
couldn't
sit
agree
at the
more.
front, right?
Funny enough, that I didn't know I was like that until you just told me.
Yeah.
And now it all makes sense, right?
Yeah.
I was ready.
I always think, for me, people get the best recovery when, I can't speak for me, when they hit a rock bottom.
Yeah.
And if you came in your rock bottom, that was your time.
Yeah.
Some people haven't hit their rock bottom,
Yeah.
so they've got to do some more research.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just the way it goes, you know? It's cruel. It's a cruel. But you see it, some people have to, you know, they haven't lost everything. So they think they can white knuckle it or they think they know better. And I've seen many people trip up when they come out of the program, when they come out of treatment. They don't work the program, they go back. But once they hit the rock bottom, they had enough, they get it.
Yeah.
See
Gift of
that gift.
desperation.
I went to a
Absolutely.
topic meeting last night, and it was on relapse and recovery. That was the topic, right? And
Yeah,
there was lots of-
how much did we go through that?
Yeah, we used to read that in treatment.
Yeah.
But there was a
I
lot
love
of
that.
people. I'm one of the lucky ones, right? When I came in 5 years ago, I've not relapsed since.
Wow.
And it was because people were sharing their relapse stories, and it's a newcomers meeting. And I sort of shared that relapse doesn't have to be part of your journey. It doesn't have to be part of your story. It's part of many, many people's stories. But it says, and I went on to this, and I weren't preaching, but I went on and said, it's in step 3, it's all about faith. But it says right at the end of step 3 that you can have all the faith that the program will keep you clean, but without action, it's completely redundant.
Right.
I think that ties into what you're saying about the guys that go into rehabs, for example, come out and just sit idle and expect themselves to stay clean.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just got stuck in straight away.
Yeah.
I like that word. Action brings about change. Thinking brings about more thinking.
Yeah.
If you just think it ain't gonna happen.
No,
It's
it
the
ain't.
whole program, it is about action.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Of course it is, mate. Well, look, you said something else about seeds being planted. All right.
Mm.
That's all well and good. You can plant a seed.
Oh,
You got to water it.
oh,
Otherwise, it ain't going to grow.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like you planted the seed and then I'll set about watering it.
But I'm on lawn, Chrissy.
There you go, mate. He's obsessed with his lawn, man.
Got it, yeah. and another thing people don't really talk about, right? This is how I view recovery. If you spoke about dishonesty, when you was like, and I was a night that you couldn't with an iPad and that.
I've told that story on it
Yeah,
before.
you're trying to look. someone trying to look for it, and you knew what it was, and used it along with it.
Helping them look.
Yeah, helps to look like an alcoholic does or addict. You know, they steal it and they help you look for it. People don't realize if you ain't got spiritual principles, right? Even before you work the steps, it ain't gonna happen. Spiritual principles is about honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. Because when you lie, you're lying to yourself. You're poisoning your own spirit.
Yeah.
I've seen many people in recovery relapse. And I said to them, what happened? Oh, I've done this. I was having an affair. I was stealing. I was doing skullduggery. And what it does, it poisons your spirit.
Yeah.
So you have to have spiritual principle. And that's the first thing I learned when I came to this program. Because I was always a liar and a cheater. But once I started to work that spiritual principle, it then made me go into working the steps. Because without it, you ain't going to grow too much.
Yeah, I love that.
So spiritual principle, it is the most important thing in recovery. Even in relationships with your partner, look in their eyes and say, look, honey, this is what I've done. Can we talk? And be honest. Because the truth sets you free.
Yeah, mate.
You get it?
Yeah.
And this is
Good,
what I
ain't it, mate?
learned. This is what I learned in recovery.
It's good
stuff,
one,
innit?
innit? Well, this is it, right? So he talks about stuff, man. I'm just like, yeah. That's what I've got to do. You know what I mean?
He talks the sense, but in a way you can relate to it.
Of course, mate.
Right.
Of course. Mate, I'm so glad we got you on here. Honestly, I'm so buzzing. So good to see you again. Let's get a little bit about your story, mate. Where did it all begin for you?
How clean are you, Mike, just to start off with?
32 years.
Wow.
Yeah, 32 years. I can't believe it.
Well done, mate.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Oh,
Absolutely amazing. That must have seemed like a lifetime ago.
yeah. I mean, if it wasn't for recovery, I would be dead.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, no doubt about it.
You know, we talk about where I come from. I can remember far back, you know, I grew up in a dysfunctional family. My dad left my mum. I had about 4 or 5 sisters with me. And I was scared as a kid. I was a
Where did you
wetter.
go up, mate?
I grew up in Dulwich.
Okay.
Yeah, I was a bed wetter. I used to wet the bed. I was a runner. I used to run away from schools.
Yeah.
And I used to nick bikes, you know. If my mum had no money, do you know what I mean? Then like everyone was scared of my mum. She had big arms like Popeye, you know what I mean? She used to pick me up, chuck me, you know, and I'd run away. You know, in schools, I couldn't read or write. You know, I was always looking out the window. I always wanted to live in someone else's family.
Yeah.
Do you know? Yeah,
You know, a lot.
I get it.
I had that empty hole,
Yeah.
and I felt like we were like still. I was maladjusted to life. You know, I craved love.
Yeah.
I wanted love from other people.
I can really
I
relate to
didn't
that.
get it from my mum.
We relate to that fear, Stephen.
Yeah.
About from a child, and it's unexplainable to a normal person. Just like I remember going into school and just thinking, not that I didn't necessarily fit in. I didn't know how to fit in.
Yeah.
And then it just grew throughout my childhood. And when I went to university, it's the same stuff, like that fear.
Yeah.
Like, how do I communicate? How do I live like a normal person?
Yeah.
Then the mask came on. But,
That's right. Yeah.
yeah. How was it at school for you? Was it?
At school, I was running away all the time, and I got arrested at age 12.
Right.
I committed 30 burglaries. Here we go. I mean, look at you to get really comfortable there. Here we go. And, I ended up in the juvenile court. I'll never forget it. You know, and the judge said to me, you need to be put in care, and you need a probation officer, and you need to be under supervision. And they sent me to this children's home. And
Like ball school.
yeah, no, like it was children's home. But I'm at the age of 12, I don't know if you remember when you were younger, the big green prison vans, right? And I still remember sitting in the back of the prison van with a screw and a social worker.
That's 12.
Well, at the age of 12, and they had to take me to the children's home. I remember it was scary, you know what I mean? Yeah, it had bars on the windows, but it was just because of the court couldn't get me a van or someone to pick me up. They had the prison van, had to take me to the children's home.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it was like a big, lovely mansion house, but you see big, ugly green van getting pulled up in there. And the staff went, wow, committed for his surgeries. But all I remember is going out with older kids, getting into trouble because I didn't want to go home to my mum.
Yeah, it was sense of belonging and all.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I done. That was my first bit of, trying to seek attention. Yeah. And I was in that children's home for like, I don't know, about 6 months. And I went back to my mum's and I kept on running away from school. And my probation officer said to me, Mike, this ain't working. You got to go to a special needs boarding school in Newbury. And I remember going to the school, there was 5 of us in the class. All right. You know what, guys? I always talk about this. My first addiction was fantasy.
Yeah.
Right. And I used to listen to Jackson 5 because I wanted to be in that group. I
Yeah.
used to lock myself in a room like this on my own and I'd get into fantasy.
Yeah.
But why I went into fantasy? Because I missed my sisters.
Yeah.
But I used to like listen to Michael Jackson, the Jackson 5.
Yeah.
And that was my fantasy. I wanted to be somewhere else.
Yeah.
I never wanted to be my own. I never wanted to be with me. I always wanted to be in this fantasy.
Yeah.
And it comforted me.
Yeah.
That was my comfort zone.
What's the coping mechanism?
Yeah.
Social media's like that now, Instagram and like YouTube, the scrolling, you know what I mean? Because I can get, that's fantasy. I just get lost.
So my first addiction.
Just switches
Yeah.
off. Enough. Just switches off everything, like reality, effectively.
Mhm.
And I can just get, I might get the same because
Yeah, I'm getting better.
Yeah.
Seems I think I've seen it on.
Yeah.
No, completely see it.
But then when I was in this school, I used to get into trouble again. I go to town and I'd be broken houses down there. And the police took me to the police station in town. They said, they want to sell. They went, this is what's going to happen to you. But you know, when my journey started, when I was at school, boarding school, I must have been about, 13 or 14. I remember my teacher sat me down in the room like this. And he said to me, Mike, if you don't listen, you're going to end up like the other black kids down there. You're going to end up in detention centres, board schools, and prisons. And I looked at him and I thought, that sounds really exciting.
Really?
Then I ended up,
Which is mad thinking.
of course it is, right? So I ended up on the front line in Brixton. I was become a pickpocketer. You laughed about that, yeah. And I used to work the bus stops at undergrounds, right? And then
How old are you, Mike?
I was about 15 then when I was a pickpocketer. And we used to go to the pub and I used to bring all the older English pickpocketers, right? Because, you know, that was my gang, you know, like Oliver Swift.
Yeah.
Pickpocket.
Reagan.
Yeah. So I go into Harrods, you know, as we do, you know what I mean? And like picking pockets. But that's what I used to do to feed myself. I was picking pockets.
Is that a buzz off that though?
There was a little buzz on that as well. Then I was accepted with the gang, you know.
Acceptance.
All the guys that I grew up with were on the street.
Yeah.
You know, that's where my education came on the street. Yeah. Then, you know, I think when I was about 15, I got arrested. And I ended up in a Crown Court called Newton. I don't know if you know about Newton Causeway, Crown Court.
Nice.
And they sent me to the detention centre. It was like a boot camp. Oh, fuck, it was scary. I remember the van pulling into the yard and they went, right, get out. I had to give up this bed kick. I had to run down the corridor and the screws were trying to hit me with their chains. And I had to run into my cell and I had to scrub the floor. And the screws come in every day looking for dust. I would be outside marching. And I was in this detention centre for 3 months. And I thought, I'm never going back there again. You know, and the thing is, I came back out there and I pickpocketing in my box. I got arrested again for pickpocketing. And I ended up going to Knightsbridge Crown Court. And there was a particular judge, his name was Judge Friend, right? And everyone was scared of him. And I remember him, he went, my name is Judge Friend, but I'm no friend of yours. You're going to Boomstall.
Fucking hell.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah. And that was the judge that everyone was talking about, you know? So I'm no friend of yours. I ended up going back to Worman Scrubs. And when I was in Worman Scrubs, right, no lie, I went back there and got another board store. And all the schools moved in Women's Scrubs. And my job, right, was working in the bathhouse, looking after all the lifers. I used to give all the bed kits, you know, the kits as they and that's what I used to do with the screws and another guy. And, you know, we used to do these weights with a bar and some other stuff on it, you know, that's what we used to do, weightlifting and all that. But I remember being in that cell, you know, staying in Women's Scrubs. And I remember this little kid said to me, Mike, I was 16, right? He said to me, Mike, have you ever been to Real Daily? I said, no. He said, what happens is the van goes down on a turntable and it turns. And I looked at him and I thought, sounds really funny. They come out.
I need to get myself to the Old Bailey.
Yeah. Like, they took me to the Old Bailey at the age of 16. I got off of this case, right? I got acquitted now, right? So I got acquitted of that case. Then I got arrested again for fraud, like fraud in banks and that. I went back to the Old Bailey and I got 3 years. I got 2 years. And I ended up going back to Women's Scrubs, high down prison and all that. And I ended up staying in and out. I was in prison to the age of like 15. I came out when I was about 23.
This the life already.
Yeah. Right. And you know what I saw? I saw that film Scarface. Remember that film Scarface? When I saw that film Scarface, I went, that's the guy I want to be like.
Tony Montana.
So what did I do? You know, dabbling in drugs, snorting, partying. I used to go string fellas every night.
Yeah.
and you know, sex, you know, acting out.
When did drugs come around? Once you was out of prison, or
Once I was out of prison,
there was no substances when you was in and out.
But what happened to me when I was in prison as well, and I always shared it, like my mate slept with my
Be
girlfriend.
careful banging the table because it picks it up on the
Oh,
mic.
sorry. My mate slept with my girlfriend when I was in prison,
Mm.
and it done me in a bit.
Yeah,
And I ended up not having one girlfriend, I had 3 girlfriends.
yeah.
So I took hospital.
Yeah.
But I never knew nothing about love, you know, because I couldn't connect with that, that emotion. So I felt like I was using women as my object, and I was using cocaine as my best friend.
Yeah.
So it became my lover. You know what I mean? So I was like,
Your early 20s, yeah?
yeah, early 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was drinking champagne, I was getting string thrillers, I was snorting, I was puffing, I was taking these.
And you're getting your money from selling drugs, yeah?
Wheeling dealer, yeah. But I had this empty hole in me that I filled out with cocaine,
Women,
sex, drink, and ease. I was like a plastic gangster.
Yeah, well, you're trying to fill it up, mate.
Yeah.
But we know that hole can't be filled. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Trying to fill it up.
I wanted everyone to love me.
Yeah.
Quite sad, really.
Yeah,
You know, I didn't know who I was, but I just wanted everyone to love me like that.
a massive ego, low self-esteem.
Yeah. And, you know, that went on for a couple of years. And, you know, I used to look at people going to work. Right, I was telling Chris, right? And I thought I'd love to get a job one day.
Mm.
And I ended up getting a job, right? I used to work for the... I used to work for the Saudi royal family, driving the long stretch limousines and all that.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And I used to live in the Dorchester Hotel. Right? And it's crazy, isn't it? Like, you know, you've got this naughty guy. I loved driving as a kid. And I used to do a bit of boxing, a bit of martial art. But I was working for this company with an ex-SAS as well. And we lived in Dorchester Hotel. And I'm in there for a couple of months. I don't know, this man found me. He thought it was a famous singer. I don't know if I said great cabinet. No.
You say whatever you need to say, mate.
Yeah, he was like Misa House's dad.
Right, okay.
And he came to see me. He said, Mike, you're really good at looking after. You look after my daughter. You know?
And that's when all that started.
That's when it all started. I was like, look after. And Marvin Gaye, remember the singer?
Yes.
I used to hang out with Marvin. I used to look after Marvin.
No, so Mike, he was like close protection, security, bodyguard.
Yeah. So what age you in then, Mike? 30?
Yeah, early 30s.
Yeah.
Right? And I used to hang out with Marvin Gaye. And he used to go in the bedroom all the time. And he was taking drugs.
Right.
And I used to take his mother shopping. And she said to me, I took her shopping one day, and she told me everything. She said, Mike, my son is on coke, and I've got a babysitter. I said, what happened? It's Teddy Pendergrass. I said, a lot of people don't know they took away his well. And she said, once he done that, he started to take his drugs.
Teddy Pendergrass took Marvin Gaye's wife away from him.
And it really affected him.
Yeah.
And I saw, like, he wasn't performing good, you know what I mean? And his mother said, I've got to look after my girl. You know, and it really, it felt like God, my higher power was showing me, this is what's going to happen to you if you don't stop.
So you're still using while you're working?
Yeah, I was still using, but I was thinking, how did I meet this people?
Yeah.
You know, and why is she telling me the story? Yeah, it's only when I got later on in life, I was meant to listen to these stories.
Of course you were, yeah.
You know, and as you knew, further on in life, for the few years after that, his dad shot him because he was a cross-dresser. And his dad killed him because he didn't want him to be like him.
Wow.
And the judge didn't send him to life. He said, look, you're going to be sentenced, but you're not going to go to prison. And I realised this is what has happened to him. Because the cocaine turns people hinky, you know. You know, I can talk from white says, you know. It went on, you know. And that's what happened. And that's what I saw with Marvin Gaye.
So was coke a problem at this point? Was booze a problem?
No, it wasn't.
It's just fun, social,
I started off fun.
Yeah, like we all did.
Yeah. But I was in this job and I was seeing a lot of things. String thrillers, Browns. It was mad. It was a lot of champagne, snorting, partying. It was fun.
Yeah.
None of us set out to be addicts.
No.
We just wanted to have fun.
Yeah.
You know? And that was my journey. I started to work for other, you know, the record companies. When I started to get all the big artists and all that, you know, and it was mad. And like
security following them about, protection, all that sort of stuff. Amazing.
Yeah.
Getting invited to parties.
Get invited to parties and all that. You know, one day I got a phone call. I have to go to backstage to Wembley, Michael Jackson, I'm there. It was mad. Nelson Mandela. I had Jazzy B, I had Seal. I ended up with Mick Hucknall. The last person I worked for was Rod Stewart. I've ended up like, it's been a mad world, you know. It's been amazing. Also amazing.
Fun in your 30s as well.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, in all those people. Yeah. And it was rife. Drugs in that area was just rife.
Right.
In that industry, in that time period, it's It was when it was all kicking off.
Yeah, yeah.
So when did it start becoming a problem?
Oh God. When it started coming a problem is when I went from snorting cocaine, drinking wine, and then I used to sleep out, different girlfriends, and my girlfriend, my 2 kids, pulled it on me. Said, "Look, mate, you got to change," and I couldn't. And my mate that I was in prison for 16 months, you keep sticking up your nose. Why don't you put it on a crack pipe? So we washed up some crack. It's called freebase at that time, and we hit up the rock. And when I got the first hit, it was like someone lifting up the sky, what me. And that is when I become a problem. I started to go to the bank, cash machines every day, drawing out 300 or 400 pounds a day, smoking crack. And I wouldn't go out of work. I'd be at home, draw the curtains, but God couldn't see me. I was on the crack pipe with my girlfriends and that, acting out. I was acting out, watching films.
Mrs. and kids at home, out with your girlfriends.
Yeah,
on the
yeah. And I couldn't stop. And I ended up hitting all my bank accounts. You know, like you see all your dreams. Like, you know, I had a lovely flat in Hampstead.
Yeah.
I had another house in North London. I was the first black guy to have a big stretch with limousines and TV in it. I used to go Ascot, Wimbledon. I was living a dream.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I'm seeing all my toys get taken away from me.
So where did you touch the crack? You said you went in jail, did you say?
No, I touched the crack. My mate, when he came out of jail, he used to hang out with me, watching me, and we was like selling like, and we stick up my nose and drink it. And he pulled it, and I realised now he probably set me up. I don't know, but he said, "Mike, why don't you wash up and have a little smoke?"
Yeah, get rid of them impurities. It's better.
That's right. Yeah. And as soon as I got that first one, that's why I think crack addiction is the worst one because it really hooks you.
You know what I've heard about crack, right? So I was a daily sniffer. I used to sniff all day.
Yeah.
Right? And the most I could do, if I really tried, was about 100, 150 quid. Just couldn't get no more up my nose.
Wow.
But what I'm saying, what people have told me about when you're on crack, you can smoke that up in about half an hour.
Yeah.
150 quid.
Easy.
Right? Yeah. So that daily habit turns into $1,000.
That's right.
Not 100 quid.
That's right. Yeah.
Right? And that's why it brings people to their
Burning through money.
Yeah, burning through money, yeah. I mean, I lost my house in Hampstead. I lost my flat in Hampstead.
Tell me that one where you was taking all your bits to cash converters.
Oh, God.
Where you pulling things off the wall. Come tell us about that.
Yeah, but what it was, I lost the flat.
Yeah.
I lost my other house. I sold my limousine. I had a brand new SL convertible Mercedes. I paid 35 grand for it. I went to a showroom. I said, "Can I sell it?" The guy said, "I can't afford it." I said, "Give me 15 grand for it." I've done that, and I smoked that out in 2 weeks. Right. I remember
you lost 20 grand on a brand new motor.
Yeah, I remember my mate. He was a drug dealer. He used to leave his flat open 12 hours a day, and I'd be around there with my flies open, my shirt undone, sweating, going there morning and night, fucking just selling all my stuff. I've become a slave. We call it a slave to the beast.
Yeah, 100%.
No, I'm not working now. Now, like, I'm not showing up for work. So I'm losing. My limousine got taken away. I had to get rid of that. You know, like, you've seen all your stuff going. Yeah. Then, you know, when that went, I went back into my girlfriend's flat in Kennington, and I remember selling everything in that flat. The kid, I used to look at my daughter in bed and think, I'm going to stop. My beautiful daughter. I said, come on from school, my daughter. I'll never get it. Dad, what have you done now? You sold my computer. I bought me 2 brand new mountain bikes. They was the happiest kids in the world. You know what I've done with those mountain bikes? I took it to Brixton and I sold it for £1. And I remember walking back from Brixton to Kennington. I wanted the floor to open me up. And my kid mother said, I sold the TV. I had a big platinum TV. Sold it to a minicab office for 50 quid. And it cost me £500. I thought I'd go and get the next day. The guy is done in my house. You get it? I can't play with him, you know.
Matt's just telling me this story. He's like, and he's coming back and he's like,
yeah,
give me £20 for it.
Yeah.
And he just emptied the flat.
All my albums, all my CDs, then the settee, then the teas, then the washing machine, then the cooker. And the second-hand bloke to come around and said, Mike, please, I can't take no more. It's everything's games. And my kid's mother, I'll tell you what, she saved my life.
And what sort of period we talking?
I don't like to laugh, but mate, I feel your pain. You know what I mean? It's just like,
Mikey, what sort of period are we talking from where it went like that out of control period where you started to sell everything and things? We talking a couple of years or?
Couple of years.
Really? It went from like,
yes,
all of it going on. You've got a fucking great business. You're respected in the industry.
Yep.
To fucking empty flat.
Yeah, empty flat. And when I saw that flat going, you know, I my rings and jewelry, that was all going to the drug dealers. Then like the last thing I remember,
Walking around with a pair of
yes, my partner said, right, and she said, I'm going to pick up the kids at school. And she didn't come back. And I remember running down the school, asking for the school teacher, have you seen us? She said, yeah, I haven't seen her. She took the kids and went. She went into a refuge. Right. She saved my life. She had to take those kids and do a run-up.
It happened to both of us,
Yeah.
mate. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was me, mate. That's my story.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she saved my life. Because when I went back into the house, the last thing I saw before I went into treatment was my bed. Right, I had a little black cat. If I could have put him on my pipe, I would have. Not really, I'm joking. Get it?
You sold the cat.
No, I didn't sell the cat, but I could have put him on the
You
pipe.
was trying to smoke the
Yeah.
cat.
Cat's thinking on there.
But then I remember getting on the floor looking for dog ends,
Yeah.
looking for crack.
Yeah.
And I got in the dustbin, all my fingernails were black. So I ended up drinking champagne, drinking wine, going out to sitting in the park bench, drinking specialty like a tramp. And all my fingernails were black. Now, this is the Champagne Kings. I couldn't stand to hear the tramp.
Yeah. Looking for little bits of crack on them.
Yeah, and I wanted to die. I wanted to die.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I must have been early 30s.
Yeah.
Oh,
Really?
God, yeah. I've done 100 grand or more, a couple 100 grand. All my toys are gone. My partner, my kids, my cars, my home, my furniture, bed, everything. I disappeared.
And not even that, Mikey.
Oh,
Your dignity, your humanity,
that's right. Yeah.
your self-esteem,
Yeah.
everything's
Yeah.
just gone.
Yeah. See, this is why I say a rock bottom. And I'm not bragging out. Put me in a prison. It didn't scare me.
No.
As you saw, I hit the top prisons at a young age. So you know I can do good. So I'm thinking this cult can't beat me. So this is why I couldn't stop. Because I thought I can do this on my own.
It just took you down.
And it just took me down, down, down until there was nothing of me. You know? And this is where I hit a really serious rock bottom. And and in the end, you know, they tried to put me into a detox. And they took me to this hospital in Houston, I remember. And they blood tested me. And they thought, Mike, we can't take you. You've got some coke in you still. We need you to be clean for 24 hours.
Yeah.
Can you stay? They went, Mike, we want to get you into City Roads. And I said, all right, I'm going to go home. And I got
What city rolls are rehab?
it was a detox, right? And I ended up going there doing service, and it's mad. So anyway, so I got the 48 hours clear, and they got me. And they put me in this detox.
You stay clean then?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We did relapse from that.
Nah. But the mad thing is, right? I was in this detox, and I saw this guy, my friend called Dave. I always share that. He used to inject heroin and cocaine. He was the worst junkie I've seen. I used to be in prison with him. I ain't sniffed like 3 or 4 years. He was a drug worker.
Wow.
And I looked at him, he had nice white eyes, like, well,
Yeah.
I said, Dave, you look well. He said, Mike, you look like shit. Stay here. You got to stay here. And I, you know, and he looked after me, you know, because this is, you know, not being funny. I was telling Chris that I learned everything in life through people I grew up with. So you get it, like if I want to get into worse crimes, I go to the criminals that I knew in prison.
Yeah.
So when you see people getting cleaned up, and you see your mates getting cleaned up,
Yeah.
and they was like, you listen, don't
That's
you?
it, mate.
So that was my first message that I got.
Yeah.
That I saw this guy,
Yeah.
white eyes, and he was a drug worker.
Yeah, if you'd have seen like a solicitor who ain't clean, do you know what I mean? It's a bit, yeah.
I wouldn't have done it.
No.
And I remember being in this detox, right? And in my head, I now know that the illness centers in the mind.
Yeah.
It's not in a drink or drug.
I was going to say, when did that penny drop?
Yeah. So what happened is my head was going, get me out, get me some drugs.
Yeah.
And all the women would walk out selling themselves, like prostituting and that. And I thought, my head was going to me, Mike, get me out, get me some crack, get me some drink. And you know what I've done? And I've always done this in prison. I hit my knees. If I was in prison, I'd go, please God, get me some cocaine or I'd do it again. And I've done this prayer in this detox. I said, please God, keep me here. And I've done that prayer every day for 3 weeks. And they said, right, my talk was going to send you 3 weeks of treatment.
Wow.
And they sent me to this beautiful treatment centre in the West Country.
That was back in the day, because it's a bit different now with treatment, isn't it? Non-paid treatment. Yeah. Back in the day, it was quite
A lot more fun.
freely available, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is great. So the West Country, yeah?
Yeah, so I've gotten to this treatment centre and I saw the pictures and all. I was like Eddie Murphy training places.
Yeah.
Smile on my face. I saw the pictures on the wall. I thought, I nicked that. The cutlery, I nicked that. And you know the women in the group? I went, I'll have her, I'll have that one. Yes. And you know in the group, I'll never forget it, about 25 of them. And then they went, one of the girls went, I want to confront someone. And the other girl said, I want to confront someone in the council. And I looked at her and I thought, if I was white, I would have gone red. And they said, Mike, try to chat me up. If I was white, I would have gone, I said, I don't like that one. I don't like that person.
Well, they just called you out.
Yeah, they called me out because they said, you got to get honest.
Yeah.
And I remember my mate, right, Radcliffe, I still remember him. He said, Mike, get honest. You got to get honest, Mike. He said, what do you do for a living? I started to import and export. Everything came out of my mouth was a lie.
Yeah.
And I remember the counselor saying, look, there's 25 of you in this group. 5's going to die. Right? No, 20's going to die and 5's going to make it. And I looked at her and I thought, oh, fuck. I couldn't even read the big book. You know, the book what we got.
Yeah.
And I thought, and my mate that I was in the detox with, a guy called Phil, a young guy, English guy, I'll never forget him. He used to look after, they used to, Layla, you done her, they used to stop me from walking out.
Right.
And I go, I don't like this person. He went, Mike, come and talk about it. Phil went, I'm going on for the weekend. I'll give him my watch. He was 26 years old. And he gave me his watch. And I said, he said, I'll see you on Monday, Mike. Do not run. Call in the office on a Monday. And this is where my whole life came, right? There's no lie. I got called in the office on that Monday. And they said to me, Michael, I said, do you remember your mate Phil? I went, yep. Coming on today. They went, nope. I said, what do you mean, no? She said, he died. I said, what? He went on, he had a cocktail, heroin and cocaine, injected it in Glasgow. And you know the key ring? I mean, I'll never forget this. They said, Mike, if you go in the middle, you get saved. You go on the edge, you'll fall off. And if you don't know what NA's got to find the back with movement. Right? And that was the first thing I heard. And they said, and they drove me in the minibus to this meeting in Bristol. And I walked in there, I'm the only black guy in there, and I saw some English folk shirt and tie. I went, they're the old Bill. They set me up.
Yeah.
Fucking
Yeah, got the wires on.
yeah, they got the wires up. They wired me up. You know? And that was my first meeting in Bristol.
Wow.
Yeah. Then they said to me, like, we got to do some baby steps. You know what I mean? And I remember writing, step 1 out, and step 2 and 3. Then they got this bloke in. I remember driving down the driveway, and I thought it was the old Bill, and I had to read out my step 4, like all the crimes that I've done and all that.
Been there a while.
Yeah. And he went, yeah, I've done that. Yeah. Then after we done the step 4,
Oh, he was saying, I've done that, I've done
yeah, I've done that. And that made me start to trust the people.
Yeah.
That's so important when you're doing a 4.
Yeah. So I'll never get this. Like, we got like 20 of us, 30 of us, and we burnt my step 4. We hold her hand, we put in a big pile, we burnt it, and we're holding hands, and the flames are going up. And I'm thinking, I'm cured now. Get out in the air. God's gonna forgive me, And little did I know, my journey hadn't even started. I'd done 4 months in that treatment centre.
In Bristol, right?
Yeah, in Bristol. And they said, you're going to an adult child treatment centre now, Mike,
Wow.
in Western Sydney there.
I love
And they
that.
said, if you go up now, you're not going to get your kids back. And I wanted my girlfriend and my kids to come and rescue me.
Yeah.
No one came to rescue me.
No.
So I've gone to this detox now, right? And the counsellors used to take us back deep. And they took me right back to the age of 12.
Yeah.
And guess what happened? We found out. I was sexually abused by a psychiatrist.
Really?
Yeah. And I fucking cried. And the counsellor said to me, Mike, how could you give love? You never had it from your mum as a dad. Yeah. And I cried. I was on the floor. He said, get off the floor, Mike. So you need to go back to school. You've got to learn how to read and write. And I remember being in Western Sydney for now. I spent 1 year in that treatment. I didn't want to come on because I knew if I had money, I'd go and smoke crack. I used to have £5 every week on me because I knew that if I got more money, I'd go and smoke crack. And I remember my cravings stopped after 9. Like in your head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a long time.
It's a long time. Right? And I felt it leave me. Then I'd done that year and I went into the rooms, into the meetings. And I remember the old times. I love the old times. They said to me, Michael, you're going to learn to love you until you learn to love yourself. And when it was Christmas, I cried. You know why I cried? Because I missed my kids. Missed my partner. It's like my feelings came back. When you put the drugs down, you get your feelings back.
Yeah, they say the good news is you get your feelings back. Bad news is you get your feelings back.
And I couldn't use no more. I had to face my feelings, And I went to college out there, and I went
Still down in Western.
down in Western Sydney there.
It's mad. My nan used to, she's not with us anymore, but she used to run a hotel down in Western.
Yeah, really? Yeah.
Back down there for years and years, 20 years. I bet she's walked past my
Yeah, I
must
guarantee.
have a small
Yeah.
place. My family's from Bristol, and they owned a hotel on the seafront down there.
No, right.
Yeah, so I spent a lot of time down there.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And another thing that I noticed about when I went to treatment, I was 35 years old. I wasn't.
No,
I was
like a baby.
18.
Yeah.
I was an 18-year-old kid.
The age you were when you
Yes.
started using.
And I had to grow up. I couldn't even cook.
No.
I had to learn how to cook,
Yeah.
treatment. I had to go back to school.
Yeah.
You know, it was nice. That part was, but it was really painful.
Did you start getting service in the meetings and stuff like that? Because service,
Yeah,
you
and I
know,
started to take meetings. I
Yeah.
started to pick up like a service commitment
Yeah.
and stuff like that. You know, then eventually I started to take the meeting after a year and a half.
Yeah, well, Tanner was telling us that you run meetings like no one else.
Oh, thanks. I learned that in the West Country. Yeah, it's only when I got back to Essex. When I got back to London after 5 years in West End, they went to me, Mike, go into the prisons, into the HMI.
wicked.
Yeah.
Best bit of service I've done.
Yeah. You know what I heard? And I didn't want to break that rule. I've heard that people that do HMI never relapse. Fuck, I don't want to relapse. You get it? Yeah? And I ended up taking the meetings in Brixton Prison.
I didn't think you'd be allowed back in that.
Yeah, I
They're
was.
quite tight, aren't they? No, I know.
Yeah,
they're really
I got the
tight.
clearance. I got
Yeah.
the clearance. I took high down prison for about 3 or 4 years, Brixton Prison,
Amazing.
Wandsworth Prison. I loved it. And you know what? Some of the most scary thing I've seen is when I took to some of those meetings, I saw some of my mates. I saw a mate of mine, I was on a prison mountain and handcuffed to him. He was actually in the room with me, in the meeting with me. And I said, what are you doing there? He said, Mike, I killed someone. Someone gave him some bad gear in the West End and then killed him. But he's in the meetings. And it really broke my heart, you know.
Yeah.
I realised I had the key of freedom.
Yeah.
They didn't. You get it? Like, because I was going on. And I realised that I had this gift, like, of like recovery. And I wanted it, you know, because when I touch drugs, it feels like I'm winter's inside my mind.
Yeah.
You
I
get it?
said that to my mum once.
You're joking.
When I first originally sort of told my parents that I had a problem, and this is like years before I got clean.
Yeah.
I remember saying to her, I was like, I feel like a prisoner. And she's like, what do you mean? I was
Yeah.
like, I feel like I'm in prison.
Yeah.
I'm trapped
Mm.
and I can't get out of it.
That's right.
And the addiction is the self.
That's right. I mean, absolutely.
Exactly how I felt.
Yep.
So I remember her, like, just her face. She just couldn't believe that her son was telling her this. You know what I mean?
I can feel like that clean sometimes. If I'm not reaching out or sharing my stuff with someone, like recently I've had a bit of life stuff going on and I kept it to myself and it was only my wife said to me, you all right? And I sort of opened up. But I used those words. I said, I feel like I'm a prisoner in my own head.
Yeah.
Because it wants me 5 years clean.
Yeah.
If I don't use the tools that have been given to me in this fellowship,
Yeah.
I can isolate very quickly, Mike.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely,
And still
absolutely.
feel like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even for me now, if I don't go to meetings in 5 to 7 days, I become restless, irritable.
At 33 years.
Yeah, I always say I go to meetings to get my medicine.
Yeah.
And I always say to myself, like, a meeting is an hour or hour and a half. How many hours do I smoke crack for? Or drink?
Yeah.
I know, 15 hours a day or 10 hours a day.
Yeah.
So if I go to meetings, I get my freedom.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, I have to have that spiritual connection.
Yes.
You know, I remember my friend taught me this, like, this allergy, you know, mobile phone.
Yeah.
It's got 5 bars in it, isn't it?
Yeah.
And if you don't plug in, what happens to it? It dies.
Yeah.
The same with us.
Yeah.
If we don't go to meetings, get that spiritual connection, we die.
That's it, mate.
Sit on our own, we're dangerous. You get it? So when we get together, all 3 of us, we're getting charged up.
Yeah, I love it.
Then out we go into the big world. You get it?
So when did the kids come back into your life? You said you moved from Western to you were there for 5 years.
Yeah. Well, it was 5 years.
That gave you a real foundation of recovery.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I just got meetings and meetings and
So a lot of gratitude down there.
absolutely, yeah. But I think my program really changed as well when I got a sponsor.
Yeah.
And I started to work the steps, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I always say this, once you work the steps, you've got to live the steps.
Of course, yes.
You know what I mean? That's step 1, you know, coming to believe in the power greater than myself, step 2. On my own and Davis, you know, step 2 to me is sponsor, God, the program, the meetings.
Yeah.
You know, and it's vital,
Yeah.
that step 2, you know. Step 1, if I put a drink or drug in my mouth, it sets off a phenomenal craving.
Yeah. And look, this is
And
what Mike used to say.
Oh,
He'd go, my addict's a black belt in
Yeah.
everything. He's
I'm crying.
like, so I don't get in the ring with it.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Because it will win.
yeah,
So like, it's good solid step 1. You know that
Yeah.
if you don't get in the ring,
yeah,
it ain't going to take you out of the game. So
Yeah.
it's like,
yeah.
I'm powerless.
I've never seen no one beat this illness.
No.
You know,
No.
and I love this word, expression. Have you heard it? It's nothing personal.
Yeah, that's what I used to say all the
I
time.
hate that.
The end of all these groups,
Me.
the end of all these
Yeah.
groups, without remember, it's nothing personal.
Yes,
Just
please me. So if I put one in me, I'm gone.
Yeah.
32 years, I look at my clock. I'm going straight to that cab. You know, if I wrestle with the beast, I'm gone.
Same as me, man.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was my story. Have a couple of beers Friday night, so we're watching the footy or whatever, and I'd be gone for 24 hours.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
2 beautiful kids and
Yeah,
a wife.
yeah.
That's my story.
I remember this convention I went to when I was about 6-7 years clean. This guy, he died, that black guy, and he was in the convention. I sat in the front, and he said this. He said, "If you know anyone who can drink and drug and get away with it, please tell them to come and see me afterward." Game over. You know what I mean? Game over. You can't beat this illness.
No.
It's like the invisible man. It's inside of me.
If someone can do that,
Oh,
they're not an addict.
yeah,
Simple as that.
yeah,
It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
We was talking about it on the way up here, and we was like, these people that can just dabble and have a little bit of this, a little bit of that, have a few weeks off,
yeah,
like leave half a gram in the drawer for next week. That's not an addict.
yeah,
That's a normal
Yeah,
person.
yeah.
Right? If you've got what we've got,
yeah,
you can't do anything.
yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah. I mean, this people don't give. I give a lot of respect to this illness. It is kind of powerful and bad thing.
Yeah.
My disease, man. I've seen it try and get me on drink, drugs, sex, food, money. It will switch me on all of them.
Met me in one day.
That's in one day, yeah. and if I don't talk it out, I act out.
Yeah.
So for me, I have to grasp this illness. You know what I mean? You know, look at this logically. If you put cocaine on the table now, or alcohol, it's not going to say to me, "Hello, Mike, how are you?" But my head will go, "I like to try a bit of that." So where does the illness really come? It's in the mind.
Thoughts and
Because cocaine,
your gut and your spirit,
Yeah.
like, can be saying, no, leave that alone.
That's
You don't
right.
need that.
Yeah.
All the good work
Yeah.
you've done over the last
So-
30 years.
Yeah.
And your head will be still saying, go on, then.
that's it.
Yeah, you'll be all right.
Yeah, it's all centered in the mind.
Yeah.
And this is why we have to work the steps.
Yeah.
We have to apply them in our thinking.
Yeah.
And this is why I love the steps, because, we've got step 4.
Yeah.
It shows you all our defects.
Yeah.
Because I was told that if I don't change my behaviour, I'm going to pick up again.
Of course, yeah.
And I had to go and look at all my defects. My sponsor, he died. He showed. I said, I ain't got no defects. He went, come, let's have a look at it. He wrote down all my captions. I never knew. You see, I didn't go to school, right? And the best education I ever got was working as well,
Yeah, I bet, yeah.
right? And I mean that. Because when my sponsor got that pen out and that paper, he wrote down all my defects. I was virgins. I didn't like other black guys. They slept with my girlfriend. So I'm not going to be friends with them. Right? I had an ego, a lot of pride. I was selfish. I was self-seeking. I was fine. I was dishonest.
How did you take it on the chin, or were you a bit defiant?
I took it, defiant.
Yeah.
And I remember my sponsor saying to me, write down all the people who was ever if you don't like. I was writing down all the people. I didn't like the police. I was black. They stopped me in my car. Didn't like my ex-girlfriends, like the banks, all the money, my family. I was writing down, I'm resentful. I hated everyone. He said, all right, come on. I like this one because people don't really talk about the step 4 in this way. But this is the way I learned. My sponsor said to me, all right, Mike, turn over the piece of paper. Let's have a look at your pipe.
Yeah.
I went, my pipe. It's my pipe. Again, it's like a mirror,
Yeah.
And I saw, right, that I was selfish, self-seeking and frightened, and I punished everyone for what happened to me as a kid. You understand me? I
Yeah, I get
punished
you.
my ex-girlfriends,
Yeah.
women. I punished the police. I didn't like no one.
Yeah.
Because of what happened to me in school.
Yeah.
And this is why everyone got it. And that's why when I done that work, it was like the mirror had to come back to this.
Yeah.
And if I wasn't shown that in my step 4, I would have never recovered. Let's have a look at your part.
Yeah.
Even now, today, if I'm in relationships with people or my friends, I always try to look at my part and think,
Yeah.
am I being jealous? Am I being selfish? Am I being self-seeking? Is it my pride? And you get the answers when you do that. And it's only through doing that, then he said to me, have a look at all your assets. Like your father.
That was uncomfortable.
That was, yeah. So it was the steps that really took shape of me,
Yeah.
because after 10 years, I nearly relapsed
Wow.
because I didn't do all the steps.
Wow.
I was bodyguard at Man United. I'll never forget it.
Really?
And I was
Oh, you went back into bodyguarding.
yeah, when I got come out clean, I was worked for Man United. I remember I had 2 Mercedes at the house.
Where is this? It's
Oh,
not
Christ.
this.
Yeah,
Not
when I
not King
when it
Beckham.
gigs, when it had gigs,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. Oh man, the food, I've never seen food like it in my life. I remember, right? I always said it when I was 10 years clean. I was driving for the West End, and I thought, is this it? And I found out my ex-girlfriend.
You follow her.
I phoned her up.
Oh, you phoned
And I used to use this girl before I got in government.
Yeah.
I phoned her up. And she said, come around my flat, let's discuss. And I bought her 2 bottles of wine. All right, I went round her flat.
Just out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere. This is really scary, man. I mean it. I've got to be honest. Went round her flat, she drew the curtains. I didn't want God to see, but I saw the curtains. I thought, God, ain't it? She took out the cocaine, the marijuana, and the drinks. And I'm sitting there, right? No lie, I swear.
About to go.
Back to go. And do you remember what I said to you? People that do hate die, never feel that. And I got down to fix the prison the next day.
Yeah.
Chris, I looked at her, all I could see was legs. I thought, am I going to go for this? And I went, and I got up.
Did you?
I got up, I swear to God, I got up and I walked.
Right.
It was about 12 o'clock that night.
I thought you were going to say, "Roy,
No,
I let you go."
And a few people said that to me when I shared that. It's happened to them and they went. The prison saved me. And I went to the prison and there was like 20 people in that room in the prison. And I told them, pissing themselves laughing.
Yeah, they needed you there.
They did say, I told them I nearly went. It was like a godsend. And you know what happened to me a couple of days after? I ended up playing a charity football match in Devon. I used to look after kids for broken homes, ex-police officers. And my legs, someone kicked my leg, snapped my Achilles tendon in that speaking. I ended up in the fucking hospital, and I remember picking up the book, and it says, if you do harm to someone, you're going to relapse. I remember tears falling down my eyes. You know, I mean, it was the most sweetest thing of my life. I ended up getting this sponsor, and I had plaster on my leg. He said, you can't run away now, Michael.
Wow.
Yeah. Do you get it, Chris? It was spooky.
Yeah.
And I ended up doing the big book, and like doing the steps again.
Yeah.
And that was that psychic change I got. It was like God calling me.
Yeah.
Or go back to where you come from.
It's funny, we've got a friend of the show, he's on the podcast, he had a real bad accident. He was in and out of recovery. And he had this bad accident, and he shares all the time that he believes that he had the accident just to slow him down for 6 months.
Yeah.
He was in a cast, and he had just all he had.
Thank you.
Just focused on recovery.
Yeah.
And now he's got 2-3 years clean.
He's a month behind me, so it's 3.5.
Yeah. Because that's it. When that happened to me, that's when I got that pen and paper, and I started to change. I started to rise. And I remember writing those steps, and I broke down crying in my sponsor's garden. He said, what is it, Mike? I said, I want to change. He said, you do inventory, you do a gratitude list, follow up newcomers every day, and do service. He said, you'll get recovery. I said, I've got to do inventory every day. He said, yep. I said, how long that going to take me? He said, 20 minutes. I said, how long? He said, how long did you smoke crack for? 5 hours a day.
So this is at 10 years clean, Mike?
Yeah, 10 years clean.
Like a resurrender.
Yeah, because you hear it. The shiny things won't keep you clean.
Of course I won't.
Right? Listen, I got one of my mates relapsed after 36 years.
Shut up.
He had all the shiny things. Right? And I said to him, what happened? You know what he told me? I said to me, I stopped working the program. So it shows us, right, that this is an incurable illness. Right? I do 6 meetings a week.
Yeah.
I pray, I do inventory every day. I hang out with newcomers, and I work in all the top treatment centers. This is the full-time job. You know, if I take my foot off the pedal, I'm in trouble.
Yeah. I wanted to get into a little bit what you're doing now. So when we was in treatment, Mikey was studying to become a therapist and a counsellor, right? And like you were saying that you struggle reading and writing, yeah? And I remember I was sitting there, you was like doing your stuff, and I could tell you was going really slowly, and I was like, "Okay, he's got some fucking work to do," just because that stuff doesn't come naturally to you, right?
Yeah.
But you stuck at it.
Yeah.
You got yourself qualified.
Yeah.
And what have you been doing past few years? Working in treatment centres.
In Switzerland. Yeah. But I'll take you back though, right? What happened when I've done all the steps, right? They said, hey, why do you have to work the steps? Because something in your life will come along and you realise why you have to see the steps.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what happened to me is I got a phone call. I'll never forget it. 6 o'clock in the morning. My sister crying down the phone. Mike, the police at your brother's house. What? Your brother's been killed. Right? My little brother was lying in bed, right? And the drug dealer went for the window and cut his throat. Fuck. When I heard that, Chris, that's devastating. Yeah, I phoned up my sponsor. He picked up the phone. He was there. I went to a meeting. I broke down crying. I done 2 meetings. People in the recovery was holding me. Right. I had to jump on the plane. And when I saw my little brother in the morgue, I tell you what, I couldn't even look at him. Right. yeah, and they said we were going to change his clothes. I said, I can't. And I had to correct my little brother. And I'll never forget it, right? It's really sad that when they created him, there was one hand free. I had to pick it up and I had to push my little brother into that fire, man. Fucking, it was the most saddest day of my life. And my head was spinning. I wanted to use. I've done 2 meetings a day, you know? And I thought, this ain't working. Then I got made redundant from my job after 60 years. I thought, this ain't happening. Then a couple of weeks after that, Chris, my dad dropped down the street. I'm not like, he had cancer. And he died within 2 weeks of a broken heart as well, cancer. So I ended up carrying my dad's coffin, my brother's coffin, and my dad's coffin. And I'm fucked. And I was in university trained to be a therapist, right?
Yeah.
Because I got dyslexia, they pulled it on me. They went, Mike, your dyslexia is really bad. We want you to stop. Mike, we can't keep going through it, please, Michael. But we're going to credit you up to level 3. And that is when I wanted to step by step recover.
Yes.
Become a drug worker. Then someone went to me in there, this girl said to me, Mike, go back to another university.
Yeah.
I thought, I can't. She said, please. And I went to another university 3 times harder. Psychodynamic. I was doing Instagram counseling. It was like CBT, psychodynamic and person-centered. All 3 of the skills, all in one. And before I was just doing person-centered. And I met, you know, the lockdown. You know, the pen that I was doing step 10 to the day. I thought, I'm going to go mad or I'm going to educate myself.
Yeah.
And I got that pen out every day.
Wow.
It's no lie, 10 hours a day. And I educated myself.
Amazing.
I went back to this new university. I've done 7 essays. I couldn't even do 1 essay, you know, because of the grammar and all that. I've done 7 essays and I passed each one of them. Wow. I got up to level 5. And I
Resilient, mate.
Listen, man.
Amazing.
Yeah, you know, when you put me in a school, no lie, right, this is sad. I'll always get taken out every class and put into another school. So when I saw my other my peers in this college, I looked at all the girls and I went, they're going to call me in this class. Yeah.
So that used to happen when you was a kid. You go to school, they pull you out, and then that university was out, and they basically took you out of that university all them years later.
Thank you. Yeah.
Same pattern.
Yeah. And when I got that first essay completed, I went, I'm in. You get it? Like, I'm in.
It was perseverance, mate.
Yeah,
I
was in. Then when I got the second one, and some of them I got referred. Like, that means you got to go and do it again. I'm being honest.
Quite there.
Yeah, so I would get the lowest score. I think you have to get 40 mark. And I would always get like a 42, 45.
Pass, mate.
The girls would get 60.
Pass is a pass.
Yeah. Then at the end, I got 2 referrals. Like, Mike, you've done a bit of praise. You copied a bit. You got to do it again. Then I failed again. Then they said, we're going to give you 1 more go at the last of it. And I had to do 2 more essays again after 2 attempts. And I got it.
It's funny.
And when I got that hat, you know the hat?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Oh, my.
What with a gown?
With a cat. Oh, thank you, God. It's back. I love it.
Hard work pays off.
That hard work, yeah.
Love
I've always been told I was a dunce, I wasn't clever enough, and I cracked it. And then the rest was history. I ended up staying in the rehabs, helping people.
You should have gone back to the old uni and waved your hat.
Yeah. But I think the greatest thing I've ever done, really, is working the step-by-step recovery, 2.5 years. Help doing group work.
Where was that?
Where I was,
Lighthouse. Yeah, doing group work we used to do, relapse and recovery. But do you know what I loved, right? And I've got to say this, like Chris was there, being able to talk to alcohol addicts, right, and plant a seed in them.
Yes.
Do you get it? You know, like you got educating people, but it's something inside of me that used to touch them.
Yeah.
Do you get it? I'm not blowing my own trumpet.
Yeah, we see all the time in meetings when the newcomer comes in, the chat up.
Yes.
On Monday night, a guy came in. He was an older guy.
Yeah.
He was just done in. First meeting.
Yeah.
And I spoke to him for 5 minutes afterwards, and I could just sort of see the clock ticking in his head. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Clock's going around. Like, maybe there's something in this. And it's like, I totally get what you mean.
Yeah, it's mad. It's like through my pain in my life, I could turn it around into something positive.
Yeah, me.
Do you understand me?
Of course we can. We're in a unique position to help people that are in the position we're in.
Thank you. And that was the greatest gift that I saw working in treatment centres. You know, educating people. You know, because they said this is a very, you know, this is a simple, this is a a disease, right, for complicated people. It's in the program for complicated people.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing people with A levels, highly intelligent people, fucking relapse
Yeah.
because they can't get this program.
You can't intellectualize it.
Intellectual,
It's a feeling.
right? Yeah,
Feeling.
yeah. So for me to be able to demonstrate it, it was like amazing, you know. And that's what I've been. And when you see people in the meeting saying, "Mike, you know, thank you for helping me," that touches me. Man. It's like a godsend. Like God used me.
We're getting it with this platform, Mike. We're getting people. So many people reach out saying thank you so much.
Thank
I've gone
you.
to a meeting, and it's I know that feeling, mate. So what were you doing in Switzerland? So similar sort of thing.
Yeah. So what happened? I went to another rehab after I saw Chris, and I worked there for about a year. Then one day I was at home, and I got this phone call from all the top doctors of psychiatry in Switzerland, and they interviewed me, and they went, "You're the sort of person we're looking for. You know, like a bit of a you're like a bank robber. Like you know, you're the perfect guy to relate, right? Yeah. So I went. They said, "Would you like to come over?"
Wow.
I mean, yeah. So I ended up working in the top rehab in Switzerland.
So is that like
$100,000 a month to go to?
Yeah. They
celebrity one,
yeah. It was fantastic. You know, I'll do step work with them.
Wow.
You know, and I take them to meetings, and then you know I just come from Dubai.
Yeah.
The Saudi, the Arab guys just paid the treatment center to put them on a private jet to fucking Dubai.
They're like, we need Mike. I'll only talk to Mike.
Yeah, we
Stuck him on a private jet to Dubai.
Switzerland. Yeah.
I'll only talk to Mike. Get him on a plane.
Hope he goes to the Caribbean next.
You know, it's just crazy, you know, and it's all recovery based. You know what I mean? So this is why I said to you, the best education I ever got was working this 12 step and being able to apply them in my life and demonstrate this program to other people.
Some of our guests have said that the fellowship is the foundation, right? It just allows you to be this person that you're always meant to be. But always at the bottom, you've got to have a strong foundation.
Yeah, absolutely,
recovery.
Yeah.
But what about family? You mentioned your kids before. You in contact with your kids, or do you want to talk about them? Or
yeah, I got my kids back. I didn't get my partner back.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and that's been my son came around and saw me last week, and I ain't seen him for a couple of years. But I had a man-to-man talk with my son the other day.
Nice.
And it was beautiful, and I told him how much I loved him, and I showed him something that I learned in the program. My dad was a womanizer. He loved women. Like he found all my sisters, 5 of them. He'd never call me, and I didn't like him for it. Right, and I got 2 daughters, and I started to find my daughters every week, and I pushed my son away.
Right, I'm repeating.
Yeah, thank you. So while I was in Switzerland, I went, Mike, this ain't right.
No.
You're doing exactly what your dad done
to
your son. It was like I was having this 2-way conversation in my head.
Yeah.
And it was food, working the steps. So have a look at your part in it. You get it? And I was saying, I'm saying, nah, I don't like my son. I was putting up this case on him. And I was just being friends with my daughter because it was the girls that I liked. And I pulled it. And I went to my daughter. I need to talk to my son. I'm not going to. And I called my son over and I told him exactly what I've been doing. And I fucking cried. And he cried. And he said, Dad, I felt that. I said, son, I love you. And I'm going to stop the behavior because my dad done it and I was repeating it. You know, this is what recovery gives me. It gives me the ability to go in and fucking fix myself.
That's maturity.
Love it.
That's emotional maturity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Recognizing the behavior, seeing your part in it.
Yeah. It was the most. I was with my son for 4 hours. It's the most powerful thing I've ever come across. I told him how I was using.
That's recently, yeah?
That was recently, yeah. Because I built up this case on him. I kind of kept him at the back and kept my daughter sweet and left him for years.
Because you were more comfortable talking to the daughters?
It's like, I think it's the girl thing. I like the girls.
The ladies' man at heart.
Yeah, I want the girls to like me, you know what I mean? But I felt this pain from my son. And I went, you didn't like your dad, Mike, because of the same reason. And you're the kid in that game.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Projecting it, yeah. It's like when I was in therapy, I went into therapy about my parents, right? And this counselor taught me something. He said to me, Mike, go and ask your parent how they were brought up, right? My mum was brought up with like 10 children in the family. My dad wasn't given love. And they repeated it on us. Do you see where it comes from? Yeah. It comes from the child and stuff, and we can repeat it.
We can break the chain.
And we have to break that chain in recovery. Yeah. You know, that's why a lot of people in recovery, like Chris and you, probably got really healthy relationships now. Yeah. But mine come from way back. So my sisters, they've broken it, and I'm breaking it. And that's what recovery's taught me. You know? Yeah.
Mate, family's so important. My boy brought his report card home from his first year at school reception, and he was upstairs playing. We're refurbing his room at the minute, so all these stuff all over the house. He's upstairs in the spare room, and my missus is like, "Oh, Theo's report is here," and I'm like, "Read it," and just the things that the teacher was saying, like, he's such a bright, clever boy. He loves getting involved. Like, she starts crying. I start crying. We cuddle each other and we're like, Theo, come down here, mate. And we both just like cuddled him up. Like, he's such a good boy.
Yeah.
Such a good boy. Like, social, like, athletic. He's just got it all, right? So we've got a responsibility of nurturing that boy
That's right.
to his full potential.
That's
You know
right.
what I mean? We owe it to him. He didn't ask to be brought into this world.
Right.
We brought him in.
Thank you.
So it's like, I don't know, or if I'm still using, I'm not in the fucking house. You know what I mean? So it's like all these little gifts I've been given, I don't take them for granted. That's why I work my program, because I don't want to lose that.
Yeah.
I don't want to miss it,
Mm.
and I want to give him the best opportunities in life.
Yeah.
And today was just a real realization. It was just like such a beautiful moment. Yeah, like he's ours,
Yeah.
and people were saying that about him. It was it was brilliant.
Mm.
Nice to see.
Yeah.
So important, ain't it?
Yeah. But I think for me in recovery also as well, like, I realised why I'm in recovery, well, because of the way I think.
Yeah.
You know, my head tells me lies sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, it builds up a case on people.
Oh yeah, all the
You
time.
get it? I get paranoid. I think people out to hurt me. They're going to get me.
Yeah.
It's like this. And I know where it's coming from. I feel insecure and frightened. And what I really need is love.
Yeah.
I need love.
Yeah.
And when I get love and I'm with my friend, I'm happy.
Yes.
But when I'm on my own and I'm flying, I put up a case on people.
Yes.
I think people that don't like me like to get me. And, you know, when I think about it, some of it's not true. But, like, my head just goes there.
Mine's a critic though.
And I'm self-critic.
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
You're not good enough, Dad, or
That's it.
work colleague, or you're
Yeah.
not putting it in there. It could be anything like, oh, you bought that gym membership, you're not using it very
That's
much.
right,
Like,
yeah.
Shut up.
Yeah.
Who are you talking to?
Yeah.
I'm having a go at
Yeah.
myself.
That's right.
Like, it's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
and that's the addiction where it creeps up on me now. It's
Yeah.
that ego and critic in my head.
That's right.
I've got to listen to what's
Yeah,
going on in
that's
there.
right,
That's the centre in
Yeah.
there, isn't it?
And that's why I do inventory every day. It checks out my thinking. It's like my dustbin. I'm on my own therapist. I work on myself every day.
Yeah.
Because my head fucking tells me lies.
So tell the listener about the inventory. We got loads of people listening who are in recovery, thinking about getting into recovery. So that's a set questions you do daily, is it?
Yeah. I do inventory. Like, I look at, you know, check out my thinking.
Yeah.
If I'm resentful, someone, why I'm resentful.
Yeah.
You know, what's the cause of it? What's it affecting?
Yeah.
My self-esteem, my security. You know, I can look at all these different things. Why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling.
Yeah,
And I do inventory around money.
Yeah.
But I do it around my thinking. Then I finish it up with a gratitude list.
Yeah, love it.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Then I phone someone up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm always like cleaning out my head.
Just checking.
Yeah, because it's my thinking.
Yeah.
That's what people realise.
Yeah.
Because they can't cope with their thinking.
That's it.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this is why we have to go to meetings, get that spiritual connection going in, mate.
Love
Every
it.
day.
What about sponsees? Talk to you work with some guys, yeah?
I've got a few. I've had loads of sponsors.
What's your experience around that?
That has been beautiful. I mean, working with sponsors,
Yeah.
it's mind blowing.
Yeah.
You know, I phone
Couldn't
them
agree
up.
more, mate.
Huh?
It's beautiful, isn't it?
It's amazing. Like,
Right.
you know, one or two of my sponsees that I've had.
Yeah.
You know, starting meetings up, being a secretary of meetings. That's another mind blower.
Yeah.
You know, but sponsoring people, see people's life change.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They come from different parts of the world, of
Yeah.
a different lifestyle, and you take them through the steps, and you actually see their life changing.
Yeah, that ripple effect into their families.
Like they've lost their families, or they broke up with their partners, their business not going, and they start working the steps, and they start building their lifestyle.
Yeah.
Then they become a sponsor.
I know.
Wow, that's mad. You get me? Like, you know, and I always say to my sponsors, it's like an escalator. You're going to move up all the time.
I like to think about the never-ending chain of sponsors. Do you know what I mean? 'Cause if you think about it, it just continues and continues unless someone breaks the chain and doesn't do it. But it's, of course, our sponsor. That chain must just go on for
Yes, huge. We've got the same sponsor.
You do.
Yeah. And then I think about his sponsor, and then his sponsor, and all their sponsees. Like that sponsorship family is like hundreds of people all trying to better themselves and work towards the same goal.
Yeah.
Amazing.
With the same principles and values, because this all come down the line.
That's
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I sponsor the way my sponsor taught me.
that's right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And it's all for free.
Yeah.
Right?
that's
Well,
right.
look, funny enough, so guy who reached out to me through the podcast, I've been his sponsor for a couple of months now. I think he's got like 70 days clean. He's on step 3. He just moved into the dry house that I was in today.
Wow.
He moved in there today. So it's like the podcast working, people are reaching out. I'm practicing what I preach. Me and Oni just talking. We live it. He reached out. I've been there for him. He's on the phone every day.
Wow.
Just got him a place in the dry house. He's going through the steps. I'm like, mate, now's your time. You know what I mean? Concentrate on yourself, just like I was saying to you earlier. Recovery first. Get that solid foundation. In a year's time, he's probably going to have someone come and ask him to be a sponsor. And so the chain goes up. It's beautiful.
Absolutely. Like that saying, we can only keep what we've got by giving it away. And that's what we have to do, keep giving it away.
Which is brilliant, mate. We've come to the end of the time, Mikey.
Wow.
Thanks so much.
I'm just getting started.
For coming in. Thanks so much for landing.
Honestly, listen to your story. It's been amazing. First time I hear this, like I've known you for ages.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, wicked.
Thanks for the invite.
Great stuff. Best of luck with everything.
Yeah.
And if I know anyone who's a little bit nuts, I'll send them to you.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice one.
Good to see you, brother.
Cheers, brother.
Cheers.
Good to meet you, man.
Bye.
Take care. Bye, everyone.